Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of this playthrough of Scenario 4 from Wing Leader Victories Penny Packets. We just concluded turn 4 and are now into turn 5. We have looked at the setup of the reinforcing Spitfire, which is going to enter over here during the movement phase, and it has placed its tally marker up there. So we are ready to begin the tally phase of turn 5. So Raiders get to tally first. Down here we have the 109 squadron that has broken, but we still have this escort, which for now we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it as an escort. We'll see if we can't save him for some reaction purposes later in the scenario. Let's go over here. Here we have the O flight currently has a tally on these Hurricanes, which we'll go ahead and keep it that way. But we'll have this flight P try to tally the climbing Spitfires down there. So let's go ahead and do a tally roll. And we roll a 3. So this flight is a veteran, so they get +1, which is a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not enough to tally, so that's a failed tally attempt. And that is going to be it for tally attempts for the Raider. Let's go now to the Defender. So let's have this Hurricane try to tally the flight that has it tallied. Try to get eyes on the threat. So here goes a roll for tally. They roll a 5. They are on a radio net with ground control, so they get +1. That's going to give them a 6, so that's sufficient to tally. So G loses their vector. It becomes a tally on that flight. And this Spitfire over here that's climbing up, let's go ahead and have him try to tally that other German flight. So here goes, and that's a 1, and that is not going to cut it. So they continue towards their vector. Over here, the Hurricanes have a tally on this broken 109, and for now we're going to go ahead and keep it that way. We don't really care about the British don't really care about these fighters. The real target is the bombers, but the Spitfires, or the Hurricanes here, are going to be able to make use of free movement when they make their during the movement phase. So let's go ahead and leave that tally as is. One thing to note is that you can lose a tally during the movement phase itself. It says tallies are retained until there is no line of sight to the target in the tally phase. So even though this German flight during the movement phase may fly away and out of line of sight of this Hurricane, the Hurricane can still use free movement, because it's not until the tally phase and there's no line of sight that he will lose that tally. So we're going to go ahead and leave it as is. Let's go to the movement phase. We're going to have our movement order kick in first with the escorts moving first. So this one's going to fly 2 spaces forward. The bombers likewise follow next. Now we move alerted. Okay. We don't have any unalerted. That's why we're skipping the unalerted step. And let's go ahead and start lowest to highest. So down here we've got this 109 that is broken and tallied. And so we're going to have him move. He's just going to fly back towards his side of the map following the return to base rules. So he's got 3 movement points +1 if he dives. He'll go ahead and do that. He's going to fly 1, 2, 3, 4, off to the right, and he is marked as diving. And H gets to keep a tally on him, and that's going to trigger H's movement because he has a tally. So H has 3 movement points. He is going to rotate and climb for 2 movement points. And then his 3rd movement point is going to be to fly. Kind of want to stay away from that. Let's go ahead and move here. That's fine. All right, so H, I'm going to put a climb marker on him. All right, next would be this guy down here. So he has to fly towards his vector, decrease the distance. So 2 movement points to climb here. Now he's got 1 more movement point. He could just spend it circling here, or he could even move here if he wanted to, because right now the distance is 1, 2, 3. If he moves here, it's still 3 away from his vector. So that's a valid move. It's not increasing the distance from his vector. So we'll go ahead and have him fly, spend his 3rd movement point here, or in other words, he could have just spent 2 movement points flying to here or whatever. So he's going to move to there. Now up here, these guys both have a tally on each other. So who moves first? Well, it's initiative order, so it's going to be the lower speed. Hurricanes have, at this altitude, a speed of 4. The 109s have a speed of 5. So the Hurricanes have to move first. So this Hurricane is not really eager to get into a fight with those 109s. So he is going to fly up a little higher, spend 2 movement points to fly up there. And that's going to trigger this guy's movement. And he is going to spend 2 movement points to fly up here. And he'll spend his 3rd movement point. He'll get 1 closer, spend his 3rd movement point to get there. Okay. And then, I guess we should have moved this guy. He doesn't have a tally, so he's just going to fly straight. 1, 2. Oh, actually, you know what? This, he's got another option here. I did not mention. So, this fighter is on a sweep mission, this flight. One of the options, once they become alerted, they have more options available to them. An alerted sweep can fly towards another unit that is on the same radio net that has a tally. So in other words, this 109 flight has a tally. This one is in communication with him and knows that there's a tallied target somewhere near him. So I could have him do what's called support, and he can move towards a friendly with a tally that's on the same radio net. They are on the same radio net. This guy's going to fly 1, 2, and 3 to fly right to here. He is marked with a climb. Okay, so again, that was called a support movement, which is one of the options available to sweeps once they are alerted. The other options for them would be simply to move forward 2 spaces like normal, or return to base. You could have them return to base, which might come in handy if you wanted him to turn around and head in the general direction of, say, this hurricane here. Or, yeah, that's basically it. There's ex-escorts have an option to form up as escorts again, but that doesn't really apply here. So, all right, movement phase is over. Oh, no. We forgot about our reinforcement here. Okay, he comes on with 3 movement points. So 1, 2, 3. He's climbing up towards his vector over here. All right, now we go to combat phase. We only have 1 combat, and that is, oh, I'm sorry, no, we don't have any combats. Okay, so no combats. We go to the admin phase. Now in the admin phase, if both parties agree, you can remove broken units. This Hurricane doesn't really care about this guy anymore. His next turn, he's going to try to tally these guys. So we can just go ahead and remove this 109 from the board at this point. Put him on the wing display. All right. Turn number 6. Tally phase. We're going to illustrate some reaction again. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this guy as an escort. He's not even going to try to tally because we're going to try to do a reaction with him. Let's go ahead and move over here. He's going to keep his tally on these Hurricanes, but P is going to try to tally these Hurricanes. So let's see if we can succeed the tally roll here. Easily. All right. So P is going to place a tally on A. All right, that's an all for the Raiders. Let's go to the Interceptors. Let's have this Spitfire here is going to try to tally those guys right there. You don't want to be attacked without having a tally on your aggressor, typically. So let's go ahead and have him, well, you know what? Yeah, probably the best. All right, here we go. 5. All right. So that's an easy tally success right there. So A places his tally on P. Let's try to make this a little more orderly. Okay. G is going to keep his tally as is. We can have this Spitfire try to tally P as well. Let's go ahead and may as well. So no harm in trying. Nope. Failed the tally roll. And this Hurricane is going to try to tally this rear Heinkel right here. So let's roll a tally here. All right, he rolls a 4, +2 for a large formation, +1 for being on ground control, intercept with the radios. So that is an easy tally. It's -2 for trying to tally behind, but still a successful tally. So let's put H's tally on this bomber. All right, that's all of our tally attempts. Let's go to the movement phase. So escorts move first. 1, 2, then the bombers. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now this is going to trigger H's movement. H is going to try to climb and engage that Heinkel. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and risk it. So this guy's going to climb 2. Oh, sorry. He's going to attempt to climb. He's announcing that he's going to climb into this square, which allows this 109 a chance to react. So this is a 2d6 roll. The 109s are going to try to react and stop the Hurricanes from entering that Heinkel square. So here we go. Here goes 2. Oh, and by the way, I want to make this clear as well. This 109 could not react if H did not have a tally. If H was just moving, let's say his vector was up here somewhere and H was moving into a square with bombers, that would not allow him to react. The fighters, the British Hurricanes, would have to have a tally on the bomber in the square they were entering to allow this 109 to react. So escorts can only react against enemy interceptors that are actually tallying and targeting and moving into their tallied target square. So here goes a 2d6 roll for the reaction attempt. All right, so that's a 9. Now let's check our chart for modifiers. We have the escort is veteran, so that's +1. -1 for each square. The escort is distant from the enemy, so it's at the point before he enters the square. So you measure from here to here. So that's 1, 2, 3. So that's a -3. And those are the only modifiers right there. So +1 for veteran, -3 for distance is a net -2. So that drops a 9 down to a 7, which is a successful reaction. We only needed a 6 or more. So the Hurricane, because he was reacted against, does not get to move into the square. He stops right here. And this 109, I guess technically he hasn't spent any movement points trying to enter yet, so he can't change his facing since that's a part of movement, spending movement point. So he is going to dive here, then here, and straight down. Okay, and N places his tally as a result of that, and also becomes a sweep. So we're going to switch his mission from escort to sweep because he has tallied an enemy. Okay, next to move, initiative order would be this guy. He would not move because he has until this guy moves, but this guy has a reciprocal tally on him. So when tallying each other, this guy's going to move first because he's at the lower altitude. He's going to make a beeline for these bombers to try to get in with them. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. He loses his climb marker. He didn't climb this turn. P is going to half a movement point to dive there, and then use up the rest of his movement points in that move right there. He's diving, and A still has a tally on him. All right, then over to this guy right here. B has his vector he's got to move towards, so he's going to fly 1, 2, 3. He's still climbing. And then these guys still have a tally on each other. So again, the initiative order would be this guy has to move first because he has the lower speed. And he also is going to do what A's doing, try to get in with the bombers. He knows he's going to be the defender in this combat because he's moving first. So may as well get himself into a position to engage the bombers next turn. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to move right to here, mark himself with a dive, and he's tallied by O here. That triggers O's movement. They're going to follow them. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. He is diving, and he's tallied by G. Now, even though the Hurricanes got into this square with these bombers, the bombers are not actually going to be a part of the combat because O has a tally on G, G has a tally on O. The bombers are not connected by tallies, so they're not a participant. However, if the Hurricanes can survive this combat, then next turn they can make a tally attempt against those bombers and hopefully enable them to engage in combat the following turn, which will ensure them to be the attacker. All right, so we've got our movement all done. Let's go ahead to combat. Got a few combats here to resolve. Let's start down here. These Hurricanes, they have a tally on a target outside their square up here, so they're going to be bounced by these 109s. So let's look at the combat stats here. The 109s are the attacker. They get to choose. They're definitely going to go with speed because they're diving. So they get 5 + 1 because they are diving, +1 because they're veteran, and -1 because they're only a flight, not a squadron. So their combat rating is a 6. The Hurricanes, their speed is a 4, -1 because they were climbing. Oh, you know what? No, they're not climbing. They actually spent no movement points climbing. They tried to, but they were reacted against. So because during the movement phase they did not move at all, that climb marker comes off. So their speed is a 4. -1 because they are using rigid doctrine. They're defending with rigid doctrine. So they are only a 3. Oh, hold on a second. And I forgot, they are also disrupted. So 4 -1 for rigid doctrine, -1 for disrupted. So they're only a 2. They are only a 2. Oh, you know what? And something else I forgot to mention, and I think this would have played in with the last combat. It would have. I forgot about this. The Hurricanes have an edge rating, edge capability, which means in a combat with enemies that don't have edge, they actually shift up 1 on their combat differential. So right now it's 6 versus 2, so it's 4, +4 for the Germans, -4 for the British. But the British get +1 to their combat differential because they have edge. These Hurricanes are kind of between 4 and a 5 on their speed. This was a new addition to 2nd edition rules. This edge rating is meant to make some ADCs give a little bit more of a variance in the basic ratings. So these Hurricanes are basically like a 4.5 in speed. They have a bit of an edge. And because the 109s don't have edge, then these Hurricanes get +1 to their combat differential. And you calculate the combat differential like normal, in this case +4 -4, and the British only get a +1. So they'll be rolling on the -3 column, while as the Germans will roll on the +4. Sorry for that. I should have caught that in the last video. I don't think it made a difference though, because if I remember correctly, the Hurricanes rolled really low, so it wouldn't really have mattered if they rolled on the -3, -2, -4. They did not score any hits. All right, let's go ahead and roll for the Germans first on the +4 column. They roll 6. Now, modifiers here, we have +1 for a bounce. The Germans bounced the British here. So that's going to give them a 7. And a 7 on the +4 column is 2 hits. So let's roll 2 dice for 2 hit confirmations. Here we go. Oh dear, that's not so good. That's an automatic, no effect. This 2 gets a +1 for the firepower rating of the 109. So that puts it up to a 3. But the Hurricane has a protection rating of 4, so that has no effect. So 2 hits, but they did not cripple an airplane. Let's roll for the British. They roll on the -3 column, again, because of their edge shift. And they score a 9, -1, because they are bounced. They were bounced. And that's pretty much the only modifier that applies. So that's an 8 on the -3 column, which is no hits. Let's roll for cohesion. Let's roll for the Germans first. They roll a 6, +1 for being veteran, +1 for being the attacker, and those are the only modifiers. So they pass their cohesion check. We're going to put a -1 on their wing display down here. H, N, this is N. Okay. Now let's roll for cohesion on the British. And they roll quite high. That's a 9. -2 because they have 2 losses. -1 because they've already have a low ammo marker. So that's a net -3. So that's going to be a 6, which is another level of disruption. Let's make sure I'm not missing any here. Yep. So another level of disruption, which means the Hurricane Squadron is broken. And away goes their mission marker and their tally. All right. So that combat is complete. We don't check for a dogfight because one side is broken. Let's go to this combat right here. Remember, the bombers are not going to be a part of this, but the Germans are the attacker. They are going to choose their speed rating again because it's better than the Hurricane's speed rating. So the 109s have a speed of 5, +1 for veteran, +1 for diving, -1 for a flight. So they are a 6. The British Hurricanes are a speed of 4, +1 for diving, but -1 because they are defending with rigid doctrine. So they are a 4. So it's 6 for the Germans, 4 for the British. And because the British have an edge rating, they get +1 to their combat differential. So the Germans get to roll on the +2. The British will roll on the -1 for their edge shift. So let's go ahead and roll for the Germans. They score 8. And they get no modifiers. This is not a bounce because the defender had a tally on the attacker. So an 8 on the +2 column is 2 hits. So let's roll for 2 confirmation rolls here. We got a 5 and a 4, +1 firepower. That's going to be 2 kills on that Hurricane G. Okay, and then let's roll for the British on the -1 column. They score an 11. No modifiers here. 11 on the -1 column is 2 hits also. Let's do their confirmation rolls. They score a 2 and a 3. They only have a firepower of 1. So that's going to be a 4 and a 3. The Germans have a protection rating of 4, so only a straggler because one of those matched the protection rating. So we put a straggler on flight O. All right, now we do cohesion. Let's roll for the Germans. They score really high. They are going to pass their cohesion check, and they are simply marked with a -1 ammo marker. And then let's roll for the British. They roll an 8, -2 for having 2 losses inflicted on them. So that drops down to a 6. That is going to be 1 level of disruption on G. Now, there is a possibility here for a dogfight. The British don't really want a dogfight. They want to try to tangle with these bombers. And if they get in a dogfight, they cannot tally the bombers. They're just going to be stuck in combat with these fighters until someone breaks. So they don't want to dogfight. However, the Germans, they are going to try to force a dogfight to force the Hurricanes to stay away from the bombers. So let's roll. When both sides cannot agree on whether to do a dogfight, then both sides roll, add their speed, veteran, and any other modifiers that might be applicable. So let's roll. This will be red for the Germans, blue for the Brits. Let's roll. All right, so the Germans have a higher speed already and they're veterans, so their roll is going to be higher than the Brits. So they do force a dogfight. So basically we just kind of bundle these guys up and mark them with a dogfight. Just like that. Okay, one more combat to resolve, and that's this one right here. Kind of a similar situation, but these are Spitfires. Spitfires do not have edge, but their speed is better. So here we go. The Germans are the aggressor or the attacker because they moved second. They have a speed of 5, +1 for veteran, +1 for dive. That's going to give them a -1 for flight. So they're a 6. The Spitfires are 5. They are not climbing or diving. And they are defending with rigid doctrine. So that means they go from a 5 to a 4. So it's 4 versus 6. So +2 -2. So let's roll for the Germans on the +2 column. They roll a 5, and there are no modifiers for this one. So a 5 on the +2 column is no hits. Let's roll for the British on the -2 column. They score a 9, and I keep hitting these clouds. Okay, a 9 with no modifiers is going to be on the -2. They actually score a hit. Okay, so here's the British. They have 1 hit to confirm. It's a 5 + 1 for firepower is a 6, so that is 109 down. So let's put that on P. Okay, let's roll cohesion. Let's roll for the Germans. 9 + 1 attacker, +1 veteran, -1 for a loss. They pass their cohesion check. Put a -1 low ammo on them. And then for the British, they roll an 8. No modifiers for them. They pass their cohesion as well. They just get a -1 marker for low ammo. We do check for a dogfight. The British do not want one. The Germans are going to try to force a dogfight again. They want to keep the Spitfires away from the bombers. So red for Germans, blue for British. And the Germans have a speed of 5, so that makes this an 8. +1 because they're diving is a 9. +1 because they're veteran is a 10. The British have a speed of 5, so that makes this a 9, but no other modifiers. So the Germans roll equal to or greater than the British, so they successfully force a dogfight. Let's put this right there. Okay. Let's just kind of mark it this way. All right, that is the end of the combat phase. Let's go ahead and, for the admin phase, we'll just leave everything as is. It's now turn 7. We're at the 30-minute mark, so I'll go ahead and end the video here. Looking at this situation, it's not looking good for the British. They already have 1 squadron out of the fight, 1 that's about to break with 2 losses. Oh, I forgot to mark them with a -1 marker. There we go. So, -4 losses here, whereas the Germans have only sustained 1 loss and still have 75% of their fighters. The British still have 75% of theirs as well, but the Germans are doing a good job of keeping them away from the bombers. So, the only wild card here is these Spitfires up here, and they're the ones that have the expert. They're going to hopefully sneak in here and do some damage to the bombers while the fighters are all distracted. So we'll end the video here. We'll pick up with the tally phase of turn 7. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Hope this was a help. Thanks for watching.